everyone. Welcome to Creating a Monster. Here we're taking the title off. We're just talking about success and what makes us significant people. I cannot believe that I am joined today with Russ Abbott. Russ, please introduce yourself.
I'm Russ Abbott.
Nailed it. All right. So Russ and I have done some catching up a little bit before we hit the let's record button, but this is going to be a really good time because something about Russ has paved the way for not only my tattoo career more recently, but also for a lot of tattoo artists who are coming into the industry. It's absolutely like changed the game, and it's been a beautiful thing to be able to actually catch up with you, get to know a little bit more about you. But my first question, and it's a big one, I'll come out of the gate and ask it. What was the pivotal point to make you go the direction of like ProCreate brushes, everything that you did prior to the illustrations and just sharing yourself outside of tattooing?
Well, I think I'd have to go back earlier than ProCreate brushes to identify the pivotal point, because I think there was a point roughly around the time where I was tattooing around like 9 or 10 years. I think that's when, let's see, I started in 1998, and in 2007 I opened my studio, Ink and Dagger. So almost 10 years in, I opened a tattoo studio, and somewhere around a year or so after that, I decided to make my first product. So this was also around the same time where I decided to teach my first seminar too. So back then I was really focused on illustrative style tattooing, and which I defined at the time as sort of a hybrid between realism and traditional, where you take the black outlines and the solid black and the shading from traditional and you apply that to subject matter that is realistic, so that you end up with, something that is made to be a tattoo that lasts over time, especially when it gets to the world of color and longevity. I had a lot of concerns, and I still do today, about the longevity of very realistic levels of color, right? And so I think the people who are doing color realism the best are the ones that really know how to push value and contrast and really, make informed decisions about the colors they choose. We're going off in a direction I don't intend to go in, but here I was, I was like looking at tattooing and, the inspirations that I had and the attention that I was starting to get for this kind of emerging style of tattooing that I was calling illustrative, for lack of a better word. And so I decided to try to take what I had learned at that point and teach it to other people in the form of a seminar, and then ultimately in the form of a DVD. And, had a little bit of success with that first seminar. And it was just at a small, very early new convention that was going on in Ybor City, Tampa, Florida. And so I reached out to the promoters of that and I said, "Hey, can I do a seminar?" And they were like, "Sure, I guess so." And so that was kind of the first time where I was like, all right, like this is stepping out of, the role of student and into the role of teacher, which, is extremely uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable for me and is uncomfortable for a lot of people. But I think, when you do that, you kind of force yourself to slow down and figure out how to articulate what you know, and you end up knowing it much better than you did before. So I think that was kind of the first lesson was, hey, first you have to get over the imposter syndrome, right? And decide that, you have something valuable worth sharing. And then in the process of trying to not screw that up and not disappoint anyone who shows up and pays you to learn it, you have to actually over deliver. And in that process, you grow. So, since that time, I guess it's really just been rinse and repeat on that idea, which, it turns into a constant obsession with, identifying creative projects that are interesting as a business opportunity. And then, applying myself completely to, trying to make that a success and learning lots of hard lessons and, rinse and repeat. So I guess the pivotal moment that you were searching for was deciding to overcome that imposter syndrome, right? And then, not that it ever goes away, because it, always rears its ugly head. But fast forward, there were some other things that happened. The DVD was a really good one. Interesting. It was a time when there were a few other how to tattoo DVDs, and I was extremely concerned about violating what I sort of viewed as the industry ethos of not sharing information with quote unquote wrong people. And so if you ever read the back of the DVD, it said something like, "This is not for scratchers or kitchen magicians," and this is for experienced tattoo artists. And I intentionally didn't cover how to line, how to shade. I took it beyond that, where the assumption was that you know how to technically tattoo, and this is about how to think about this specific style, and just following along and hearing what I'm thinking as I'm approaching every stage of the tattoo and decisions I'm making. But that type of thing was unprecedented at that point in time.
Oh yeah.
There were very, very few examples that you could find of that type of product. And so it was something that, you wouldn't sell 10,000 of them, but the ones you did sell, they were worth $100.
Yeah.
And so, so I got my first taste of, creating a product that I had a market for, and getting that sort of exchange where people were happy that they bought what I made, and I became addicted to that.
Okay, so there's so many things that I really just wanted to jump in. I'm a fast talker. Immediately, the first thing that pops up in my head is when you talked about the imposter syndrome. You know what I mean? I think as artists, we all have it in a sense. We all have a little bit of self-doubt. Is this who we are? Is this what we're capable of accomplishing? Are we overdoing it? And we kind of stop ourselves in our tracks. But you push through it. You realize, well, I'm here. We have to do it. Like you said, over deliver. And that's the beautiful thing about a creative mind, I think. As long as you don't have too many anchors, too many barriers, and too much like self-doubt, that if you can think creatively, you're like, well, we're here. I guess we're going to do it. And we're going to do it really well, or at least a lot of it. And that's like that momentum you said. Like you get obsessed with that feeling of producing something. Like as a tattoo artist, you still produce a tangible product every single day when you tattoo, but to have a physical tangible product that you can create like a DVD to transcend like the experience for, now you're tapping into artists. You're not just making something for a client, you're making something for the artist. Now you're having an impact on the industry. And I remember that video. Like there was a few that came out. I've been tattooing since 04, 05. And I distinctly remember that video because we didn't have there weren't tattoo based videos. You would play some shitty, cheesy B-roll movie softly playing in the background of your tattoo studio. But then we got yours, and I believe the other one was like maybe the whole enchilada or something. And they were just on loop forever. And all of a sudden you see tattoo artists sitting down and almost studying information and like trying to attach themselves with the belief system of somebody that they admired. And I think that was new because the only other people we had to attach ourselves to were the bikers that we learned from, who were also still kind of figuring it out. You know what I mean? Right. So that kind of made a much more significant education process for tattooing. Like I had said, that changed kind of the directional path of tattooing just by doing something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of some of the other contributors at that time. There was Guy Aitchison, his book Reinventing the Tattoo, which is still available now as a course, and I totally recommend people look into it. Was essential in my education. And so he forged that path long before I did, and I was lucky to get to collaborate with him on a full leg tattoo, but also to contribute some content about color theory to a bonus chapter of Reinventing. But so Guy comes to mind. Joe Capobianco did a DVD. Joshua Carlton had several. Eventually there was a Nico DVD, maybe a Mike DeVries DVD over on the color realism side. There were a few, but it never really exploded. And I think that part of the reason why is because we faced a lot of risk of judgment and shaming for doing that. Like I made a decision that was probably counter to what I felt like was going to be counter to opportunities that may come in tattooing. Like I had to wonder, is there a tattoo convention that I'll never be invited to because I did this? Is there a relationship that I would enjoy having that I'll never get because I did this? And so it wasn't just imposter syndrome, but it was like a very legitimate concern that I was going to get canceled, for, crossing the line as people perceived it. And, I don't know that ever really materialized, like it was just something that I thought would happen, or could happen, that I had to overcome that fear. And, I guess I'll never know, what doors didn't open because of certain decisions I made. And then, but, I definitely know that plenty of doors did open, and I got to connect with people who felt the same way about tattooing and felt the same way about what was missing in tattooing as I did. And, I got to be a part of, I think, every single major educational conference that's ever occurred. With English language as its focus. Like I've even, I've been able to go and be translated into other languages at conferences, and I've gotten the chance to be on stages, and, that would have never happened if I didn't take that first step.
Yeah. Well, and so again, I absolutely love that because it takes all the information that you gained and you literally just you organized it and you prioritized it in some sort of a step-by-step guide. If there's one thing that I've learned in my own experience and with working with people, is our inability to prioritize and to organize our thoughts and what we've learned. You know what I mean? And so sometimes we need a systematic approach, which seems kind of above and beyond the way the creative tattoo artist mind wants to work, because we want to be the outliers. We don't want organization. We don't want structure. We want to live our lives the way we live them. But when you apply organization and structure to it, even in a single sense, maybe not the whole thing, maybe not the whole picture, but to a degree, then all of a sudden, like you had said, like doors open because you took a risk, because it was methodical in a sense, because you knew it needed to be done. So regardless of the imposter syndrome or whether or not it should be done, it needed to be done, and you did it. And then the doors that didn't open don't matter because so many others did, and it's that little risk that is required. I mean, there's a weird perfect cocktail, I think, to the creative mind of risk taking, dreaming, and just legitimate ambition, that when you find those three, those doors will inevitably open for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And, so going back to that early sort of origin story, after the DVD and the seminar, I think specifically after that first seminar, I don't know if Instagram didn't exist at that point. So I'm probably posting pictures of me on Facebook or MySpace or something like that, teaching a seminar, and almost immediately, I think like the very next day, I got invitations from both Derb Morrison to do a seminar at Hell City and Gabe Ripley to do a seminar at the very first Paradise Gathering. And those two, were some of the most high profile opportunities. Like, there was a time before that where I was like, I wonder if I could even get a booth at Hell City. I wonder if that guy Derb that I read about, would give me the time of day. And then the very next thing that's happening is he's reaching out to me, asking me to not only work at the convention, but to speak to his audience. And, and that was something that really stuck with me, because it was just another obvious clue that, there's not a lot of people who will take that risk. And, those that are further down that path, Derb is an excellent example of that. He's at this point has already had a number of successful tattoo conventions under his belt, but there was a point when, he was probably afraid to do that too, and, so maybe, I don't know, the phrase real and recognize real comes to mind. I don't know if that's adequate, but
that's what I'm naming this podcast.
Right. So it's like, it's about, like it's an abundance mindset too. I think I've learned that term a year ago, probably, but it's about realizing that, in so many ways, there's not a limited number of people who will get tattooed. Right. And, So the people who were afraid of releasing information about how to do tattoos better are really afraid that they're going to lose their ability to maintain a successful career because there's going to be so much competition, right? And when you're in this game long enough, you realize that there's inevitably always going to be more people starting to tattoo. And of course, market forces will play on that, and some people will leave for various reasons. But, if my view of it, or my mindset on that, is, of course, if I can do something to help tattoo artists become better at the design of tattoos, or better at how they treat their business, or better at just any aspect of the craft, if I can contribute that way, and they just start doing better tattoos and helping clients and providing a better experience for people, how is that harmful for tattooing, right? Because happy customers breed more customers, right? When people have a good experience of any of us, they go out there in the world and they show people what we've done, and that makes more tattoo clients. So, the way forward is not to build walls. It's not to be a gatekeeper. It's not to, hold the information privately. It's to actually build the community and share it, right?
Yeah. And I value the fact that you brought up just the client experience alone, because I think in a lot of ways that's part of the element that's overlooked in a lot of senses when it comes to like present day apprenticeship processes. We can teach people the fundamentals. We can teach people clean hand, dirty hand. We can teach people bloodborne pathogens, first aid, CPR, all the things that are required. But the perfect client experience comes with significance. It comes with like the client, like the entire process. You know what I mean? Like when we get done with a tattoo that we're just either pumped on or could think to ourselves, could use improvement. That's what we walk away with. But the client has a piece of art. They have an experience that was good, bad, or indifferent, but they have a memory forever. When they look at your tattoo, that comes with an entire story, not only from the one they brought in, but the one they get to walk away from. And that's one thing I am adamant about in my studio, is just the client experience. I talk heavily, and probably it goes over people's heads. It's like the SOP and the KPI of the perfect client experience. So we can all hit benchmarks. The personal brand each person carries positively impacts the culture, which then designs the environment, shy of like the actual aesthetics of it. And I'm such a stickler on it, because I've also been that tattoo artist that I wouldn't make eye contact during my consultation, or it was kind of turn and burn, like, come on in, let's get you done so I can get to the next $50 tattoo. I've been there, I've done that. And I realized after crunching the numbers and putting in the time, that doesn't create a good reputation. It doesn't create a good experience. And that person hopefully will just say the shop they got it at, not from me, because I don't take a lot of pride in being that person when I was. So like I had told you earlier, like you can either be a product of your environment or a student of your process. Luckily, I hit that student of my process point where now the work ethic and the passion means so much more than the previous talent that we already had, because talent can come with massive levels of work ethic. But if you just come in with talent, you're just telling me what you've already done. I want to know what it is you want to learn, how far you want to go. And a lot of imposter syndrome comes from that transition alone. But all right, so moving past the DVDs, what was the transit like? What were the building blocks from doing your seminars, getting to really work with like some big heavy hitters in that time? What did you continuously creating tangibly that just kept filling that cup you were saying? Like it got infectious. It got kind of like addictive to keep producing more and more value outside of just the tattoo.
Somewhere around that time, I read The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. Have you ever read it?
Oh yeah.
The main premise of that book that I took away was not that I was going to work only 4 hours in a week, but that the secret, or the mindset to have, is that if you are trading your time for money, then you're stuck in a bit of a prison of your own making, right? Like you can't have more time. You can't, you can possibly charge more for the time that you're trading for money, but there may be a ceiling on that, however theoretical, but it's imposed by the market and your own willingness to push that. And then on the other side of that, the freedom that could ultimately lead you to, being able to consider a 4-hour work week might come from, and the book talks about this heavily, about creating a product, right? Like taking whatever it is that you're passionate about, this thing that you have unique knowledge about, and realizing that there's an opportunity where people like you could use a thing like this and going off and making it. And so, and I think I read that before the DVD happened. And then I saw some success with that. And I thought, well, maybe I could make more DVDs, or maybe I could teach more seminars. But the next product that happened was I decided to make a book. And I was starting to be known for ornamental tattoo designs. I was using a lot of scroll work, not just as like backgrounds and accessories to tattoos, but also I was doing tattoos that were just scroll work. And it was starting to look like, that could be a new version of, biomechanical or something like that at the time. And, so I thought, let me just make a book of designs. So it's like an art project where I draw a bunch of scrollwork designs. I'll turn it into a book, so there's a lot of new skills to learn there. First physical product that, DVD was a physical product, but this one had to be printed overseas. I had to figure out like how to work with a graphic designer to, format all the pages, and then ultimately how to market it. And I ended up using Kickstarter, which was like brand new at the time. And so I decided to make a Kickstarter campaign and leverage the social media audience that I had to get people excited about this project. And at the time, Kickstarter was so new. So I think it was probably the first product that anyone in tattooing tried to do a Kickstarter of. And I sort of benefited, I think, from a little bit of like the newness of it. It was, people were still willing to share stuff on social media back then. Like you could hit up your network and say, hey, I'm doing this cool project, would you mind reposting this? And they would actually do it. Like it was, you couldn't ask too many times, but like people would do it. And so there was this sort of network effect that happened because I was saying, hey, I want to make this, I need to raise this amount of money. You can pre-order it. Essentially, you can support it and make it a reality by going to this link and watching this video and choosing what you want. And so here we are, a 30-day Kickstarter campaign, and I raised maybe, I forget the exact number, but roughly $50,000, and way more than I needed to make the book. And so it became, all right, well, we're going to print 2,000 copies instead of 1,000. And part of this was I also sold some tattoos as part of it. Like you could spend $5,000 and get a back piece, and someone actually bought that. So, it was a little bit of it. The numbers were cooked a little bit because people were just, buying tattoos from me. But, it was incredible, to like flip open the Kickstarter app, every day for those first few days and be like, oh my God, there's another order. There's another order. There's another order. That's when I was like, all right, this is it. Like I have to make things that tattoo artists want to buy over and over and over again. And, it became so fulfilling. So I had to, figure out new things to do, like new creative projects that, ultimately would be interesting to my audience. And now if you go to tattoosmart.com today, you'll see that there are hundreds, like it became at one point, I think we were launching a new product every week. So there's a lot of steps in between where I was with Kickstarter and the book, but I also did a Kickstarter for the Abbott color wheel, which was, a really interesting project where I worked with Eternal Ink. I figured out a method to really precisely measure the colors of their tattoo inks so that I could pull them into a digital environment, created a color wheel. The physical version of it had multiple masks that would rotate on top of it. And so you could view color schemes. And so it was a physical tool. It ultimately became a digital tool. And I decided to stop supporting it because it was, oh no, they released another 10 colors and they got rid of these 10 colors. And it was like, this is just like such a pain in the butt to keep it, up to date. But, the Abbott Color Wheel project was being sold through Ink and Dagger Tattoo's website.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of weird. It was a little bit weird for tattoo artists who were having to go to this tattoo studio's website to buy the thing. And it was weird for tattoo clients who had to, read about the guy, Russ Abbott, that owns this thing and the tools he sells to tattoo artists. So that's really the kind of genesis of Tattoo Smart. I needed to create a place to keep selling products that I was going to make or that I was going to work with others on to, serve the, it was a broad enough name for a website for a company where we could do a lot of different things. And, where we really started to kind of get that product market fit was just in happenstance, really. Like, it started the platform Tattoo Smart in 2016, and the Apple iPad and the Apple Pencil hit that same year. So I was talking to tattoo artists about how they needed to get a Wacom Cintiq and switch to digital. I was, I'd made a couple of DVDs about that and was also selling, downloads of that kind of content, tutorials. And I was making brushes for Clip Studio, which was not working on the iPad at that time. So everything I was doing was like, hey, tattoo artists, there's a huge opportunity in digital design. All you need to do is invest like $3,000 or $4,000 in this expensive equipment that you can't carry around, and your whole life will change. And that was a really hard argument to make. But the Apple iPad and the Apple Pencil changed all that. And ProCreate in particular became, the sort of gateway drug to digital design for tattooing. And so that really is the origin story of Tattoo Smart. It was like, needed a place to sell the Abbott Color Wheel and future products, was, kind of trying to be a leader and forge new territories in the world of how do we create digital design tools, things like the snake brush, where you have a brush that repeats snake scales, or rope brushes. These kind of repeater brushes were some of the early things that I was excited about, because I was like, this is amazing. Like, we can basically, the inspiration for these things came from Clip Studio, which was the program I was using on the Cintiq. And that program used to be called Manga Studio at the time. And Manga, as you probably know, is huge in Japan. And that was a piece of software out of Japan. And so they were creating tools in Clip Studio that were, even more advanced than the brushes we have today in ProCreate, because they could be full color. Like, I remember one that just comes with the program is like a caution tape, that yellow tape that says caution.
Oh yeah.
So they have a brush that comes with Clip Studio, and it's caution tape, but it follows your cursor around the screen and it bends the letters along with that curve.
Okay.
You can't do that in ProCreate, and you can't do it in full color, or at least you can't have two different colors or more colors, and it doesn't bend. So those early repeater brushes in Clip Studio were the inspiration for all of it, because I looked at that caution tape and I was like, how does that work? And then I learned you could customize them. You could make your own little source, which in this case was a little strip that said caution with yellow around it, and plug it in there. And then you just have to adjust the spacing between the sources, and you have to change some settings about how it reacts to your pressure. But all of that, it's like 20 steps, and you just switch it out. So you make a copy of the brush that you like, and you switch out the source image. And so it's just, it feels a little bit like hacking, it's like, it's kind of technical. It's not computer programming. It's just, hey, copy this, change the thing out, go back to the drawing and make adjustments until it works, and mess with settings. And then that's how I discovered those things.
So here's my question.
Sure.
When you get into all of these things, whether it's the DVD, tangible printed book, all the way into doing your brushes, your seminars, do you get as excited to create something new as you did initially when you first got to start tattooing? You know what I mean? Do you keep having kind of that rinse and repeat, like, excitement, like it's kid with the new toy, like, oh, this is going to be so awesome. You know what I mean? With a little bit of anxiety towards it.
Sure. Right. It's probably, I feel like I'm really lucky because I started tattooing at a time when we were on the cusp of a giant explosion, right? Like in so many ways, like I was just there at an interesting time where, in the first tattoo studio I worked at, we were having a conversation about like, all right, it seems like maybe we need to switch from Yellow Pages ads to a website. How do we do that? Who do you talk to about making a website? So it was like, I'm just turned 45. So I'm in the generation that, had dial-up modems when we were kids. We had message boards when we were young teenagers. We had America Online, we had, we were there for the whole internet, so it's been like that my whole life. But yeah, I just want to use my experience to, help to facilitate what's next in tattooing, uh, over and over and over again. Like I guess the big vision that I'm still kind of waiting for is the ability to capture accurate 3D scans of our clients and work on designs in the 3D space that sort of automatically, print out to stencils or some whatever method we'll use in the future to get the design back from that digital space back onto the person. Because I think that, at least for me, because I love large scale tattooing, I love doing, arm sleeves and back pieces and chest pieces, and leg sleeves, all the sleeves. I like to work. I like the idea that I can design that in 3D space. So, we've made products like the model humans at Tattoo Smart are a step in that direction. But we're still waiting for our smartphones to, catch up and, have have an experience where, we have some device that we all know how to use that very easily, with a great user experience, captures a 3D model. And again, people listening to this that know about this are like, oh, we already have that. I'm like, okay, what we're waiting for is for it to be easy and widespread. Like that's when the shift will happen. But, early adopters, people like me, are going to be out there, investing in, super expensive equipment, trying to learn different software, like trying to figure out how this will work. And in some cases, that moment of discovery is something that, I'm personally driven to do. And I'm also I'm driven to know the people that are doing it. That's another piece of it. Like I really, I see them out there, and, I make relationships with them, just, because we come from a common place. Right.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing that I value the most about all of that is the dreamer's attitude and the need for community and networking. You know what I mean? Because some of the coolest ideas come from two minds coming together to really see what each other are capable of accomplishing. But I think in a lot of ways, life requires some level of transactional relationship involved there. You see somebody who has something that you want to understand, and you have something that they want to understand. That's how networking occurs. Even nowadays, I've noticed so much disconnect to like really good networking. Like it's still present, obviously, like go back to the conversation of conventions and seminars. People network there to truly learn valuable skills. Russ shows up to do a seminar, and you have a lot of people there who truly want to be able to gain that knowledge from the source. But then the opportunity of community and networking has kind of fallen short, like you were saying, because there's so much competition out there. People don't realize that there's always going to be new tattoo artists coming in. We can't stop that, nor would we want to, because it's exciting in a sense. But people turn 18 every single day at a much faster rate than tattoo artists come into the industry. And so I love the idea, like just as you had said, like it's exciting to see people doing new things, learning new things, applying new things that I want to be able to know how to do also. And that was me reaching out to you. In my imposter syndrome mindset, was I going to get in a call with Russ Abbott in timely fashion? Probably not. Russ Abbott's got some Russ Abbott shit to do. But I'm also not going to stop myself in my tracks, because you have valuable information and you have a great mindset, something that I want to have a conversation with. So it is that risk. You know what I mean? I'm not creating a tangible product in a sense of a DVD, a tangible book, or even a brush. But damn it, if it isn't tangible to truly have a conversation with somebody to see what our minds can put together just in a conversation to give other people the opportunity to get to know things you wouldn't normally see at a seminar. You know what I mean? The stepping stones to go from tattooing in the 90s all the way into opening your own studio, DVDs, books, seminars, into something like technologically advanced for what tattoo artists were even willing to accept. I remember when people first started using tablets, everybody just kind of like, no, 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 thank you. And now, like, it's hard to get an apprenticeship if you don't already have a tablet in your hand. You know,
Yeah, I mean,
and
I haven't tried to get an apprenticeship lately, but the
give it a shot.
yeah, I mean, I guess in a way, I try to network into unfamiliar territory, you know, all the time, you know, but that's usually outside of tattooing, you know,
Yeah,
like I'm trying to learn more about so many other aspects of business and life in general. So, you know, I think that, you know, I still put myself in that uncomfortable place, you know, I still will put myself into a room of people that seem more successful and more knowledgeable than me. And, you know, I still have to overcome all the same things that younger me had to overcome, but at a different scale. Right.
yeah.
So,
Well,
you know, it never stops. It just keeps going.
I think a couple good ideas come from that. One, I really think it'd be a good idea if we just did a Russ Abbott does undercover boss, where you just go into tattoo studios and try to get apprenticeships. But that's for another that's for another discussion. But no, I completely agree, and I think that's especially as creatives, shouldn't we all aspire for that? Like, there's so many people out there who just have information who are above us. I've never believed in the pyramid scheme of all things, like the gatekeeper, where everybody has to answer to said situation to be able to enter the world of tattooing. I love the ladder theory. People are going to come into tattooing anyway. I would much prefer to reach behind me to somebody on that same ladder to bring them up to where I am than have to fight my way to the top of the pyramid. There's it's as lonely at the top as it is at the bottom. So let's help each other up that hill in certain ways. You know, there's some people who just don't want to see growth. There are other people who want to grow at too fast of a rate. But there's a lot of people who are just really they're willing to apply that ambition, that risk, and that dream that we had talked about previously to just know I'm scared as shit to be here, but damn it, I'm gonna get there somehow. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious because you know, you talk to a lot of tattoo artists, right? You
Yep.
mentioned you have some private coaching that you do. And obviously you're thinking about the problems that tattoo artists face a lot. Like, what would you say are some of the key sort of common threads that you see tattoo artists are facing?
It's it's situational based on where they are in the industry. So when I work with artists who are just coming in, a lot of it is the networking possibility. It's the information that they're gaining. But most of all, I think a lot of it has to do with people aren't really sure how to absorb the confidence that's required to become a tattoo artist. Like, this is when they're coming in, like, essentially into the tattoo industry. There's not a lot of self belief patterns that are being implemented. You know what I mean? Aside from the just do it, just figure it out. You know what I mean? And I mean, there's a lot that we can do internally for ourselves in our own lives to help create a lot of confidence. My speech, and I've said this to hundreds of people: make one promise to yourself, keep one promise to yourself, and confidence is right around the corner. But then when you start getting into the 3 and 5 year artists, a lot of it has to do more with community, network, opportunities presenting themselves, because we get very comfortable. We realize that the initial goal was becoming a tattoo artist. But then you don't set the next bar after that. You just kind of find complacency in the celebration of acquiring or achieving the one goal that you had. And then so much time passes, you feel like you've almost kind of reverted back to that initial panic because you haven't kept momentum going.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so,
I hear you. Yeah. I mean, for me, I think that early in my tattoo career, there was a couple of things that were important to me. One was, you know, somehow getting clients that would get the tattoos that I wanted to do. Right. You know, and I remember, a couple of years in, I don't know how this happened. Oh, I think somewhere I was looking at some kind of like, early version of the internet. Maybe it was like a message board or something where somebody was like, I'm looking for a tattoo artist to do a koi fish half sleeve in the Atlanta area, and I stumbled across this thing and I was like, oh my God, like perfect. There's someone that wants a whole half sleeve, I like Japanese tattoos. Like maybe I could be the guy. And so like I reach out to this guy and it ends up working, like he ends up going, thanks. I was looking for someone like you who wanted to do this. And, I got to do my first half sleeve. And, that was such a big unlock for me because, I was used to people, only wanting to spend, maybe $200 on a tattoo. And this guy probably spent like a whole, like 800 or something, and, there were tattoo studios. There were like 3 tattoo studios in Atlanta that, kind of occupied the sort of like top of the food chain. One of them was Dino Cook's Psycho Tattoo, which was, he had 3 locations at the time when I started working there. But I started there in like, I guess around 2000. Let's see, what year was 9/11? 2000? 2001. So I started after that at Psycho, so 2002, and I worked there for about 2 years. And Dino was famous at that point for his contributions to the world of color realism. And, so it was like, it was really, really exciting to get that interview and to get that job. And, but still, again, like, small fish, big pond, basically, like it was like we're doing walk-ins, like we're competing for the attention of the clients on the website. Just trying to get a lot of time in of just like hanging out in Dino's room and watching him work and trying to learn what we could. And, I got to do a couple of conventions while I was working there, and that kind of like helped me to, because I was along with that group, it kind of helped me feel a little bit more confident. And, but I also started doing a lot of tattoos on like local scene kids, like I sort of tapped into this like local hardcore kid scene. And at the time, these guys were, they were like 18 years old, 19 years old, 20 years old, a little younger than me. And they had, they were in that strange point of their life where like they had a little bit of money to spend on tattoos. Like it got tighter for them later, I think, once they like, got out into their own places to live away from their parents. And they like, sometimes I think kids around that age are like really strangely have the opportunity for whatever reason to collect a sleeve or something. And, at the time it was like $400, for like a whole day with me. So like, it was, it wasn't too expensive, I guess, but I haven't done the calculation or the conversion to today's money, but it was a lot less than I charge now. And, that group gave me the opportunity to do my first sleeves. There's like a few people from that group that got just really giant tattoos from me during that era, and that's really where I started to find my voice as a tattoo artist and started to get some confidence. So by the time I left there, shortly after that, I got my first opportunity to be featured in a magazine. It was International Tattoo Magazine. And, more of those kinds of opportunities just started kind of like piling on after that. I'm not sure why I started talking about Psycho. I guess I was thinking about what it was like, at that 3 to 5 year mark, and how I needed to take a risk and go try to get a job in a studio like that so that I could get around a higher level of tattooing and, kind of get some exposure to a world that I hadn't yet seen. And then, but there ultimately came a point where I needed to go to a different studio because I guess at the time I felt like I needed a little bit more. I didn't need to be surrounded by so much competition in a way, like competition, like in particular because, Dino would go to every tattoo convention, and then someone else from this studio of 3 studios worth of people who all had seniority over me would go with him. And so, there wasn't a lot of opportunity for me to go off. It didn't feel like I was allowed to go off and, get my own convention opportunities. It was like, I kind of had to wait my turn, and it was like, I can't wait 5 years till everybody else leaves. So
Right.
I think that was a big part of why I felt like I needed to leave there. And it's something that I've thought about, not doing in my studio, like not creating this sort of, hierarchy that, holds people back from what they feel like they need for their career. That's tricky, but.
Well, and I think one thing, and I had this conversation with the gentleman I own my studio with, is we try to diminish the need for hierarchy, but I think hierarchies don't need to exist as long as there's discipline present, which comes with that personal brand we were talking about. So we try to really, I'm saying enforce, that almost came out real aggressive, but we try to instill a lot of like personal discipline and a personal accountability so that there's no need for the hierarchy. And then we do all just travel as a studio to do conventions, which gets expensive because there's like 8 of us. So we're going large scale. So we do have these KPIs that we all try to meet. And in hopes that we can break through a lot of what your previous question was, like what are the problems that people struggle with in the beginning? So I was hosting a free community for newer artists just to kind of help instill a lot more mindset traits in them for like up until the beginning of the year. And one thing I discussed a lot were the 3 stages of tattooing before you hit success. Obviously, apprenticeship, you get paid nothing mainly, but you gain a lot of vital information. You may be ridiculed a little bit, but it creates resilience. Then you go into the junior artist stage where you start making a little bit of money. You're probably making as much as your friends who are obligated to clock in, clock out. That comes with a sense of pride, but you're still learning the valuable lessons on how to implement proper client experience. So there's still knowledge, but you're starting to make a little money. Past that, you become an advanced artist where you can set your own hourly. You're getting to create your own art that people love and they come to you, you appreciate. But sometimes what occurs is you forget to create for yourself. Now your entire job revolves around creating for other people, so you lose that creative spark. And so you start to deplete a little bit. But if you can break through that, that's when success occurs. That's when you get into the point of thinking outside the box, getting back into your own personal creativity. Utilizing tattooing is just another form of creation, but that really makes you value the interaction you get to have with an individual. And being able to break that down and have it make sense to people and watch people take notes in that information and what to look for and those signs to look forward to watch out for.
How to know which stage you're even in, right? Like, how do you even know, if you're ready to graduate? Yeah, I think I've explained that same idea in my own way. Probably using roughly the same terminology, but it's there's certainly different phases of a tattoo career and different things that I think should be your priority and your focus during those. I'm really interested in the role of the tattoo studio and how we as tattoo studio owners, should think about which of those, if we use your 3 categories of people, we ideally would like to serve, if not more than one, and how do we arrange the environment to meet that goal? So I'm curious, maybe to hear a little bit about your thoughts on that, like which of those categories does your studio serve?
So we have hybrid a bit. So we're called Legacy for a particular reason. So we as a studio, we have veteran artists who service because they have their own clientele. As long as we're all driven and we're creating on our downtime, then we can positively impact the junior artists that we have. And so we all try to maintain doing art nights. But the one thing that we love to do is we actually host free art classes for kids in our community every quarter. And that's where the idea of legacy came from. At the time, I didn't have any kids, but my business partner did. His legacy was genetic, and his daughter is an absolute monster. She's going to blow all of us out of the water, and now I have imposter syndrome again over it. But that's beside the point. My legacy is just community work, like my personal tattoo page, maybe 3,000 or 4,000 followers because it's all local. I don't do the clout. I don't do ads. I don't do any of it, but I've had an individual conversation with each person on that page, and I remain as booked as I need to because I value the client experience. When they come in and meet with me, if we're tattooing for 10 hours, I already know what you want to eat for that day. So I make sure that we get that lunch break. I already know exactly what your favorite stuff is and what it is I can do to make you feel the most comfortable. And so when I get the opportunity to give people that as the experience, then it's kind of rinsed and repeated to set that personal brand. So whether they're in the junior artist or the advanced veteran artist stage, we're all trying to meet these SOPs and these benchmarks, And there are a lot of things that the younger generation tattoo artists can teach me when it comes to just, maybe calm down. Don't be so shouty all the time because I'm a very intense, over the top guy. It's like, well, that makes sense. That makes sense. Culture's different now. When I came into tattooing, it was bikers. I was a musician at the time. I was the party guy. And we have a very nice, calm demeanor. The community can come in. People who do not normally get tattooed can come in and just check out the art that we do. And so we're kind of an outlier in a lot of it because we don't have competition because we offer a superior product. And because it's more than just the tattooing, it's the culture, it's the experience. And we invite the community in to be able to relish in that alongside us. Plus, we get to work with kids, which I absolutely love. Teaching kids art is so much fun.
Yeah, there must be some parents who object to the idea of bringing their kids to a tattoo shop for art classes, but it seems like there's enough that don't.
No. So what we do is after the first time I learned a valuable lesson. Don't let the parents have their phones. Whatever you do, you will just become a babysitter. So what we do is it becomes interactive. We help the parents learn how to interact creatively with their kids. So whatever art we're going to be doing, the parents and the kids do it together. And because of the reputation that we have, actually people love us. Like we donate money across the city all the time. We create really good rapport, really good relationships. I work with the Department of Public Health here periodically. We're on obviously like the Chamber of Commerce here. So we make sure that we're interjecting ourselves in positive ways to the best of our ability.
That's great. Yeah, we haven't really done any of that stuff at Ink and Dagger. I'm kind of left thinking, oh man, what are the missed opportunities to engage with our community a little bit more? I've thought about, more like trying to have a conversation with high schoolers about how to get a good tattoo, how to not screw that up because they're all like, just about to be legal.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, I just haven't really identified a way to make that happen. So that's cool.
Our big thing was just, it actually started at a local tattoo convention. We were doing free temporary tattoos for kids at our booth, and all the donations went to art supplies for the local school. Because once they started cutting funding and everything, they had next to nothing, or they're just using everything they kind of had as resources instead of having the things they could to help kids create. What I came to find is if I don't have a nonprofit, then that school can take that money and put it to whatever the hell they want. I have no say in what that money goes towards. So instead, I took it upon myself to start working with the local library to do donations through them. Then we would start to host the art classes. So then the library promoted what we did. We had stickers and banners, the whole thing. We did farmers markets and just got to know the community, got ourselves out there and made sure we wore smiles on our faces and shook all the hands.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, that's essential because we're always sort of like trying to reduce the stigma that surrounds tattooing, right?
Yeah.
It's like that's been a thing for me the entire time that I've been a tattoo artist. Like, man, if I'm going to do this, like I have to overcome, the objections of people who just see my physical appearance and judge me, or the people that, hear my career and think, oh man, this is like a criminal or a biker or whatever, and it's like, that's really, continues to affect me. I'm not even legally allowed to open a tattoo studio in the county that I live in. I have to drive 25 minutes away to the next county over to Ink and Dagger, because they made laws that said that tattoo studios were classified as adult entertainment, and adult entertainment is banned. And, there's all these other layers of, different zoning restrictions that they've put in on top of that. So if one layer of the onion gets taken away, there's still like 2 or 3 more, barriers to the tattoo business entering into this area. And, so I've sort of made that, a lifelong mission, to always, have a positive impact on tattooing, to reduce the stigma that exists, definitely not to contribute to the stigma. And so it seems like the work that you're doing, art classes for kids in your community and all the other things are helping to reduce that stigma, at least locally, probably, changing the minds of a lot of people, especially on the older end of the spectrum, who are like rethinking their view of tattooing.
Yeah.
Not that they're getting tattooed, but at least they're not freaking out when their grandkids are doing it. Right. Like it's,
well, and for me, I think it's selfish in nature, because before, years and years before I became a tattoo artist, I told myself I want to be an art teacher one day. And I was like, well, I guess I'm just 2 birds with 1 stone at this point. No, I did. I worked with kids in the Second Chance program, like kids who have substance abuse issues or are raised in families with substance abuse issues. I've had alcohol and drug problems in my younger years, just out the ass. Like I told you earlier, cartoon character tattoo artist, man. And so after that, that's kind of where all this started. Like the Force of Focus wasn't a me working with tattoo artists program at all. I help creatives who are struggling with substance abuse issues or vices or self-doubt break through that to create stronger monsters than the demons that held them back, which in turn comes the title Creating a Monster as well. We all need something stronger than what we were to push us forward. And so all of this started with just trying to be of service to other people from my past experiences that I had, that I learned valuable lessons from the hard way. Yeah. So, man, we are coming close to an hour already. Russ, if there was one, this is a big ticket question, so feel free to take your time, think it through. If there was one piece of advice you could give an artist who's just kind of stuck, feeling complacent, or in just the monotony of overwhelmedness or the imposter syndrome, if you could give one bit of advice to that person, what do you think it would be?
Yeah, that is a tough one. You don't just send these to people ahead of time and let them think about them?
Nope, just a real conversation, man.
Okay. All right, let me think. So this person is stuck in imposter syndrome. Help me understand their problem a little bit more clearly.
Yeah.
What's going on?
All right. So let's say, for instance, this individual stuck in imposter syndrome. They've been doing it for a couple years, and they just don't know where it's going. They keep doing the same butterfly and the same infinity symbol. It's put food on their plate, but it hasn't filled their cup.
So the problem is that they don't clearly understand who they are as a tattoo artist clearly enough to have produced enough evidence of who they are so that they can then market the message of who they are to enough people and identify who it is that, would ideally get that tattoo. So let me back up a little bit. Because this is a problem that artists in my studio commonly have. At least I'll frame my answer from that perspective. So the typical problem that artists who are, let's say in that, like, it could be anywhere in the range of, 3 years to 10 years. I mean, they could be earlier too and think they have this problem, but I just don't think they should have this problem. So let me back up to earlier, right? So back in the apprentice/junior artist point of view, my best analysis of this is that they should be focused on developing the widest skill set possible. They should be taking advantage of the anonymity. Can you help me with this word? It's the anonymity, the anonymousness.
Anonymity.
Anonymity. Thank you.
Anonymity.
They should be taking advantage of the I can't do it.
Anonymity. Dude, I'm an ex-alcoholic. I know anonymity.
They should be taking advantage of this anonymousness that they currently have, or no one is paying attention to them, right? They don't have an audience yet. So there's no risk in doing a style of tattoos that they are not known for doing, other than, they might do a terrible tattoo. So with the guidance of mentors and with all the time in the world to like focus on preparing for these tattoos, I do think that they should take some risks and, expand their skill set. So I don't love the idea of a apprentice only learning one specific style and staying stuck in that forever. That's scary to me because, they might miss the opportunity to widen their skill set, to explore different techniques in tattooing, and to ultimately discover the thing that no one else has even done before that they were uniquely, positioned to do. And if they were able to discover that, then that would enable them to develop a very, unique niche and a unique point of view as an artist that ultimately expands, the market of opportunity for them in the future. And that is not the only way to be a successful tattoo artist, because they could just remain a jack of all trades and serve the general customer who just wants a tattoo, and they could, focus on client experience, and they could, just focus on being a good all around tattoo artist, which, that has its advantages. But to the person who is kind of stuck knowing like, oh, I know I'm supposed to find my style, but I don't know how to find it. It's probably on the other side of being more open to more styles than you have previously been, and exploring, and at least while you're anonymous, I still can't say the word, exploring a lot of styles. And I say that because that's the way it was for me when I was in that first 4 or 5 years. I was literally trying every style. I was like, am I going to be a Japanese style artist? Am I a realism black and gray artist? Am I American traditional artist? What's this whole neo-trad thing that's starting to happen? Is it illustrative?
Yeah.
Is it tribal? Is it, do I just do, I didn't even know the term for ornamental yet, but I was interested in that and ultimately ended up kind of exploring that. So, I often joke that I probably would do pretty well on a show like Ink Master because I built that foundation. Like there's no style challenge they're going to throw at me that I don't have some experience in.
Yeah.
And I'm constantly trying to figure out how every single technique in tattooing works. There's no style of like if there's a technique and an outcome that I see on Instagram, I'm trying to figure out how I can achieve it. And so I just want to have this encyclopedic knowledge of as many different styles, and in part because of my work with Tattoo Smart and working with so many artists around the world to create these, sets of stylistically focused flash. That's been something that I was already sort of uniquely primed to do because of that experience, but also like through that experience, I've learned about so many different genres. So, there's the, if there were a Venn diagram that, you know what those are, right? Let's say 3 circles that are overlapping, and in the center, there's that like triangular shape where you want to be, right? So the Venn diagram for this is, what you love to do is one circle. And the next one is what you're good at. And the third circle, the third circle is what people are willing to pay you for. Right. And so where those interlock, in the middle of that might be what you should be focused on, the answer to the question of, what I should do. So it's like, I enjoy it and I'm good at it. Let's get those two things together. And then let's test that against, are people willing to pay for this thing that I enjoy and I'm good at? Because, I do think we need to do tattooing for a living. But if in the meantime, while you're waiting to convince people to want to pay you for it, you can do what you're good at that you enjoy, in a lot of different ways, whether it's, picking a person who's like an ideal client that you really love being around and you'd like to travel the world with, and doing even free tattoos on them. So you can, create the evidence of your expertise in this topic.
Yeah.
That's one way that I've seen work. And, creating digital mock-ups is a huge way that, Tattoo Smart is here to support. We want you to think about, creating designs, putting them on our 3D models of people, so that you can show and create visualizations for clients to be able to imagine this vision that you have for your art. So if people can't see it, and if you can't learn to talk about it in a way that's compelling, then it's not going to be easy for anyone to imagine just showing up and asking you for what you were born to do. Right. So there's a lot there. I'll pause for a moment and see if you had a comment.
So much. Well, so at one point in time, I got kind of ooh squirrel, and I came back to the how awesome it would be if Russ Abbott did the undercover boss for Ink Master. I don't know why I'm continuously going back, a little fake mustache and a monocle. Like, I'm definitely not Russ Abbott, and you're just. The Venn diagram idea, I'm going to design that because that's
I've already got it in my iPad somewhere. Hold on.
Oh, well, I mean, that's okay. Never mind. Yeah. Well, then I'm not. I'm just going to think heavily into it because it's such a beautiful depiction of what
I'll see if I can find an image of it. Hold on. Let me see.
It's such a beautiful depiction of what is important and like how to like stay focused. Because one thing I talk to a lot of the artists that I work with about is, well, what should I be focusing on? Like, what should I be drawing? Like, literally, whatever fuels you right now. Like, what needs improvement, what requires your attention, and what is it that you just really want to do. We can find that happy medium, whether it's for a tattoo or just for you to create. Both are extremely important.
Definitely. Sorry, I got distracted while I'm looking for this Venn diagram.
Oh, you're good.
I'm afraid that there might be a 4-circle version of it that I'm going to find, which I guess that'll be another interesting thing to talk about. But I love a good Venn diagram.
I'm weirdly like, I require structure and I require documentation and I like making graphs, so I completely get it.
What do we do with people who are stuck in that moment of not knowing what the hell they're supposed to be doing? It seems like such a common problem.
Well, it is, and I think so. This is a huge onion to peel back because I think traditionally the way apprenticeships were ran, like it hardwired us to laser focus us into knowing your role. You know what I mean? Like, because there was a noticeable hierarchy, so we knew what we needed to be focused on. There were no other options, and where now the world is our oyster. Opportunity is everywhere. We have social media, so we're kind of bombarded with possibility without actually knowing the fundamentals of application or execution.
Right. Yeah. That's part of it for sure. Right. Like I benefited from coming into tattooing at a time where there were less styles, there were less popular artists, there were, less colors available. Right. Like we got to learn how to mix weird colors, and now they just show up in a bottle. So we don't necessarily understand what's inside of them. There's so many reasons why I guess experience starts to simplify things, right? Which kind of makes me think about why it's so important to have a coach, or have a mentor, someone that can like help you to spot, which level you're at and what the likely, I guess, problems are that you're experiencing. But I'm not going to find the Venn diagram, so I'll just have to, maybe I can send it to you later and you can throw it up in the edit.
I will, yeah. When this gets put up, I will have it by then. But
because the thing about it is there's other overlapping sections in that diagram too, right?
Yeah.
Like there's like the in between stuff, but anyway.
I mean, the creative mind is such a messy thing because where most people would find 2 circles to overlap, we can add a third. Hell, there's a 4th and a 5th we can think of to add to it. We'll always find more circles to add to the perfect, the perfect solution.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think there probably is a 3-circle and a 4-circle version of this thing somewhere in my iPad. I was thinking I used it in in a presentation that I made at some point. Some time when I was on stage, I probably put that up, or I used it in a coaching session with an artist at my studio, and who's having that problem. And one of the things that just keeps happening, and maybe it's someone who's a little bit ADD or someone who's like a little bit unfocused, is this sort of like ping pong, like constant distraction, shiny object syndrome, which I often suffer from. And, and so, I guess, my current version of this, like my current mindset about me as a tattoo artist is, I've got some pretty pretty big blinders up, some like things that I've put in place to protect me from getting distracted as much as possible. And that comes in part because I only plan to be tattooing 1 day a week, and for the foreseeable future. But I also simultaneously want to be working on bodysuits, and those two things are like not congruent at all. It doesn't make any sense to be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do bodysuits and I'm never gonna tattoo, because there's a lot of sitting there and tattooing required to do bodysuits. So I don't actually have an answer for why I think that way, but I do think that I have another, I'm 45. Maybe I can tattoo another 15 years, 20 years, maybe, like if I'm lucky. If I had a very few dedicated clients at one a week, then I can do, 4 different clients monthly, so if I only had 4 clients and they were all working on bodysuits, and they all came in once a month, then 5 years from now, like I might have 5 bodysuits, and that would be pretty cool, so I have to figure out, how to say no to all the projects that aren't leading towards that. Because if I say yes to a 2 or 3 session tattoo, is that somehow going to lead to the bodysuit or not? Well, I mean, maybe that person becomes the bodysuit, but now I have to have a deeper level of conversation before we agree to do that tattoo to sort of test whether or not that's possible. And so I guess that's the kind of world I'm in right now. It's like, I understand more or less like what the recipe would be of Russ Abbott bodysuits. I know kind of what they would look like, but I haven't proven that in a way where I expect anyone else to know it. Like I've created a few tattoos that are heading that way. I've created some visualizations that are heading that way, but I haven't done the full, really intense version of a marketing plan to create that reality. So in the meantime, while I sit and get distracted from other things, I just have to kind of take what I get. And it's mostly good. Since I only recently started saying I'm looking for new clients, a few really cool projects have popped up. And in some cases, clients that did really cool projects in the past have come back. And it turns out that they were also getting bodysuits. I just didn't know how to plant that seed in them at the earlier time. So that's kind of where it's at for me. It's like, all right, I finally, for the last 5 years or so, I've had a clue, what that bodysuit would look like, and was able to sort of like realize that vision for doing it. Now I just have to figure out how to get my lifestyle and my body to cooperate with that goal.
that was huge for me. I was wildly out of shape. Started doing the carpal tunnel thing and just eating like hell. And I'm 30. Did I just forget how old I am? 37. And by the time I was 32, carpal tunnel was already setting in. Couldn't stand up straight. I was on a walker for a while because of my knee. And then I started actually like getting into shape, and now I feel younger than I used to, which gave me some extra years tattooing, in my opinion. But obviously, I replaced the time I don't tattoo with sitting in this chair in this office on Zoom calls, like getting no tattoo artists. Both are not taking me in the direction I want. However, that does bring me to an interesting point, which may be the close of all of this, is what does the tattoo artist retirement plan look like? Do we need to have do we even require one? Do we, is it, but I mean, like in the grand scheme of things, retiring from tattooing is one thing, but is the retirement plan when our hands go out? Is it when our backs go out? Is it because we're just kind of over it? Is it we've accomplished everything we ever dreamed, and now we're just kind of like feather in the hat to it? Or do we just keep letting the dream just take us wherever, like you have from DVD to seminar to Tattoo
Right.
Smart?
Well, yeah, I mean, jumping back to the 4-hour work week, that was such a pivotal moment in my life where I recognized, because of that book, I recognized that I was on a path towards, you know, a really, really rough latter part of my life, right? Like I wasn't earning enough, you know, I guess I was like starting to climb out of debt at that point, the debt that I created for myself when nothing else mattered but tattooing, right? When it was like, it doesn't matter if, you know, I'm just trading one credit card balance in for another to lower the interest rate for a year. Like I was, you know, terrible with money, you know, and just making all kinds of bad decisions. But, you know, ultimately, because I was able to, you know, kind of carve out this other path of creating products and starting to experience what it was like to, you know, make $100, $500, $1,000 sometimes overnight while I slept. It was like, okay, like I can tattoo and simultaneously I can build something that, you know, will hopefully generate more income so that I can save for retirement. Maybe I get into investing in real estate one day. Still hasn't happened. You know, I'm a homeowner, but I haven't gone into that world yet. But I, you know, and speaking of, I do think that that's a kind of an obvious place for tattoo artists to look for their sort of side hustle opportunity, but it just wasn't the path I went. But yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense for people who tattoo to figure out how to do something else also as a safety net, basically, and to create that extra income that they can't get while they're just sitting there tattooing. And so, you know, in some cases we see that play out by people getting into making prints or other merchandise of their artwork. That could be the thing. Doing collaborations with brands, you know, leveraging their position as tattoo artist, to, you know, create something for a company, like something like my friend BJ Betts, you know, has done that a gazillion times, you know, doing lettering design for Kat Von D's makeup line and a bunch of other brands, you know, and like he made a Tattoo Smart product with me, and he's made his own books and ebooks, and he's just always doing something, ink, machines, you know, like all these, I can't even list all the products that he's made. So, you know, he's someone that comes to mind. You know, there's lots of examples of people who have figured out how to, like, you know, make it as a tattoo artist and then create, you know, a bunch of other opportunities around them. And, you know, so it could be something that people listening could do that is related to tattooing. And it could be something like the real estate thing that's just, you know, it's interesting because we're creative. You know, for me, I'm thinking, oh, I get to think about how to decorate it before I put it on Airbnb. Like that sounds fun. You know, I would look at it from that perspective. You know, what skill sets do I have? You know, what vision do I have for my life? What skill sets do I need to build in order to realize that vision? And, you know, and then make a solid decision and then start eating that elephant one bite at a time.
Yep. Absolutely love that. Russ, this has been an awesome time. I can't be more appreciative of you joining me here today. We're going to stay in touch. I want that Venn diagram.
Okay, for sure. Yeah, I really enjoyed the conversation too. And, you know, I appreciate you giving me this opportunity to, you know, just kind of get some of these thoughts out. And, you know, I feel super inspired to have conversations like this. So I'd love to do it again. Love to stay in touch.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
So I don't know how this is possible, but if people don't know who Russ Abbott is, where can they find you?
Well, let's see. I think most tattoo artists are on Instagram, so I'm at Russ Abbott on Instagram. My studio is Ink and Dagger Tattoo on Instagram, and Tattoo Smart on Instagram. So, you know, those are the three different places. Websites, of course, tattoosmart.com, inkanddagger.com. Let's see. You know, hopefully you can find me at educational conferences wherever they happen to pop up. You know, I'm always looking for more opportunities to be on stage, and probably won't see me, you know, working at a tattoo convention. It's kind of not really my thing these days. But yeah, I'm always around, always open to questions in the DMs, and, you know, just love to connect with people.
Perfect. I'm going to put all your links down below when we get this posted, man. I couldn't be more appreciative of your time. Seriously.
Oh shit, one more. I gotta throw out one more. I failed. Sorry. Tattoo Smart's YouTube channel, Tattoo Smart on YouTube. I'm putting a lot of effort into that channel this year. Currently working on a Basics of ProCreate series. It's going to be up there. It's like a full course and everything a tattoo artist needs to know to get up and running in ProCreate. So, you know, if that's something that people find interesting, I'm working on that like this week. So probably by the time anyone hears this, you'll be able to find that course on our YouTube channel.
That's awesome, man. I mean, I could use that. I still have no idea what I'm doing on ProCreate, and I've used it for like 5 years now.
Well, yeah, this is for you then. You know, it's everything that a tattoo artist needs and really nothing that you don't. So the whole purpose of this was to just kind of like save people from having to dig through all the tutorials out there and figure out how to apply it. And I'm just giving people everything that, you know, I would want anyone in my shop to know.
Yeah.
You know, first week of working at Ink and Dagger, you know, these are the things that I'm making sure people know. So,
well, it's greatly appreciated, man. I'll make sure all this gets out there. People need to know, Russ. Thank you for your time. It's been real. Thanks for checking it out, everybody.
Right on. Thanks.